Welcome to Freedom Algo. Today was a wild day on the ES. It's October 24th, 2024, and I'll show you the chart lesson for the morning session. Now, as you can see, I have the 2000 tick ES chart pulled up. That's what I use for scalping for these high probability price action setups. And if you read the chart right, you pretty much can get a almost 100% win rate here. The only time you really get losers on these types of trades is when you read something wrong. So I do want to call that out because people always try to, oh, you can't have a 100% win rate, blah, blah. If you read things properly, you can. I don't. I don't have a 100% win rate, but I do have a high win rate, very high win rate with this setup. So I'm going to call this, I'm going to show you what I saw today. So basically, I had this uptrend working in the overnight. Two-tiered channel working up. It then broke here. You got to close outside and a new high really quickly. And it's possible that this trend was a little bit of wider, something like that. It doesn't really matter though, because you want it off these closes on the lows. And even if that were the case, it doesn't matter because you still get a close outside pretty quickly. And the new high happens here on the news. All right. So then this was kind of like a tight little range up here that I drew from this high. Now, at the time when I came in, I did draw, or I didn't draw this till later, but I did draw a range from the lows to the highs later on when I saw that we were kind of going sideways. But the first trade comes within this range, and you basically get a long right here. Really easy setup. Uh, what you have here is a 1-2 triple test. And I mean, it's really 4 tests. 1 test here, 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 here. So it's really a 4 test, but it's at least a triple test. And it's, coming off the bottom here. It's a bullish looking candle. Not perfect, but decent. And here you're expecting that we're probably going to at least come up towards these highs because we just look like we're going to test that. The other thing is you had this down channel working, and this is a new low and a close outside all at once, which means this down channel has played out already. All right, so it ends up giving you the scalp. Doesn't go all the way up, but it does give you the scalp, and it turns into this really bearish trend that you really just don't get any way to enter on a price action setup, unfortunately. You just don't really get it. This was tempting to try to short here because it did look like a trap the way it was all setting up here, but you don't really get a setup. It's just a first entry. It's coming into the low. You don't know if the range is going to break or hold here, and you don't get any sort of lower high entry. So you just have to watch it go. But then you do get a nice little long down here because the down channel comes down and you get this close outside, double bottom, slightly bullish candle. You're really far from the EMA at this point. You could also see this as a first entry, second entry long. And so that one is one where it's questionable, but if you're going to try to look for a bottom on a failed breakout, this would be the place to find one. And so I did like that setup. It ends up being pretty low risk as well. It's only an 8-tick bar, so it was worth it. If that bar was huge, then I would say probably not worth it to take the risk there. But, not a perfect setup, which is why I gave it a green arrow instead of a blue. All right, so then you don't really get anything here. It just gets really sideways. And over here, you finally do get a possible short. Now, at the time, the way I was seeing this was you could have looked at this as we didn't really get a new low. It was kind of a double bottom. It's not that convincing of a close. So it's possible that we're still going to make a new low on this channel. And so what I was thinking here is that as we got sideways, you're thinking, all right, we're below the EMA. We haven't even come back to it. And so you end up here, and basically what you get is you have this high, and you have a first entry, second entry long that fails and traps everybody. So this is one where basically it's kind of sideways, but it is a first entry, second entry long failure trap. You'd have to wait for that bar to close, in my opinion, not try to take this on the engulfing bar. Wait for it to close, and then you could take the short there. It's definitely some risk. 16-tick bar. You're going into the low of the day, so it's not perfect, but you are thinking that's so bearish that it's probably going to at least give you a scalp and try to fill this gap that we were waiting on filling. You don't end up filling it. You did have this. Oh, by the way, you did have this down channel, so that was another reason to kind of like it. But you are shorting right into the bottom of the channel, so not too, not perfect. Down here, I think this one is even a little bit safer. basically you come down, you make your new low, and then you get this bullish candle that closes. And you could just take this as like possible scalp. You are going into the bottom of this possible range that's forming. At the time, you would have had this range probably drawn a little higher, maybe off of these lows here. And so you'd be thinking we got some room to that space and we could probably tap it. And we did end up getting there on this candle. So you would have got a decent trade there, but these are all kind of questionable trades, not perfect setups. And all right, so now you do have this up channel that forms, and you can draw it from here off of this close, and it gets confirmed over this way. Now, before it was really confirmed, when you only had kind of these touches down here and you didn't have this other extra close, I saw this as now we did have a range in play. And I think at the time, I had it drawn a little tighter even because we really had this very tight range working, kind of like this. And I saw this as a possible um, failed breakout. So this was a pretty safe trade for me because it's a first entry short, second entry short that goes one tick higher and then comes down as a failed breakout. So that was a safe trade for me. That was a nice one. After that trade, and that one was easy to get filled on, it ended up going really quick. I got into this one. It basically immediately hit my 4 ticks, came back, and then stopped out my break-even runner. I didn't even have a chance. I was trying to move the runner down a little lower. I think I was moving it to here, and then I was like, oh, at the time, since I had the tight channel, I was going to move my runner to somewhere over here, but it ends up stopping out my runner, which is fine. It ends up going up. You get a break here and a slight down channel working. No real setups here. But after you have this down channel, you are expecting a new low because you don't make one on this down channel after the break. This up channel was a wider channel, so I wasn't expecting a new high right away. I was really playing the range more. And at this point, I had the range high now at this level, and I had the lows a little higher before and just saw this as a failed breakout. But eventually, I moved them down over here. So on this setup over here, what you get is you're coming down and you get a first entry long pullback, second entry long failure, and it's also a first entry short, hidden first entry short, pullback, second entry short, and it's also just a rejection off the range high. So it's basically tap at this level. So you could kind of call it like a triple test, even though this test is way higher. It's kind of like a triple test the way it plays out. And so I like that just as a short off the range highs. And nice easy bar, only 8 ticks. Comes down, and you get a higher low here. So this one is questionable again because you're working down here. You do make your new low already on this, so it's a possibility that you made your new low right here. So that's a higher low. So you could take that one. It's off of the range lows. At this point, you would have probably moved down your range lows slightly and said, well, we are closing here. This looks like a reasonable spot. It's not exactly triple test material, but it's similar. So it's just a higher low. It's reasonable. Comes up. You don't get a bearish enough bar to short this, but what you do get is this slight down channel working, and then right here you get a close outside and a new low all at the same time on this bullish bar. And now at this point you can call that 1, 2, 3, basically a little more than a triple test. It is lower than these lows right here, but it's not quite as low as these, and it just looks bullish enough that you're probably coming back in and possibly going to go to the range highs. It ends up being a strong move that actually busts out of the range and gives you this top here. And then you start working down again. There's not really anything here. It just kind of works down. The range breaks. You get a close outside here, but it's just not. It's an inside bar. Keeps going sideways. You're now rejecting the range. You eventually do come down. And now you come off of the actual range lows that I had drawn here. And you get a pretty bullish candle. And so I just saw that as a possible failed breakout attempt. You did finally fill the gap because you missed it right there. And so that's a possibility. It then kind of runs up and gives you a first entry short, second entry short that is a new high and closes outside of this tight channel all at once. So that's a possibility. Again, it's questionable because it was a break back into the range. So you don't know if you might be going for the range high there. So it's there's no lower high setup though, unfortunately. You don't get a lower high to enter. So that ends up being all you get. And at this point, I had this measured move from this high to this low, and I copied it to this high. And then I also had a measured move from this high to this low and ran it from this high, which now I had targets to the downside. So here's the first measured move, which we bounced perfectly from there. And then the second measured move, we bounced perfectly from there. So that's why I love these measured moves. All right, so then over here, you now had this channel working down. And so you get a first entry, second entry long failure right at the lows here. It's questionable because you're going short right into the range low, and it's possible after this candle that you do stay within the range now because it's kind of like a triple test of the range low. Some people would have argued that you could long this, but I don't think so. I didn't like the setup there. You have this channel working down. You have this channel, you're expecting a new low, which you get, but there could be a wider channel in play here. So, and you're below this EMA, it's curving down. You're looking bearish. You've got lower highs throughout the day on each one of these big swings. So I would be thinking, even though we had this range, it's got a bearish bias. And you can see that just by looking at it like this. You can see this high, this high, this high. These are all lower highs. And the lows are inconsistent, but they're getting lower on a lot of these swings. So you're thinking we're probably going to test that low, or at least test the overnight low. So that one was a little risky, but it was there. Comes all the way down to the measured move. You don't really get a long here. This is too sideways to long off, even though this bar is bullish. It's just too sideways to long off of anything there. Ends up breaking out of this channel. So now you have this channel target of we're probably going to get a new low here on this down channel. So you're thinking, all right, we're probably going to get a new low. So what you end up with is you come off of this low here. You get a first entry short. And after this first entry short, which breaks below the EMA, it comes back up and gives you this second entry short that's also a lower high on the swing, which I really liked. And even if you did draw kind of an up channel, you have this up channel working, which you don't really get a close outside of and a new high necessarily, depending on how you drew it. I guess you do if you draw it like that. But it doesn't really matter because you're thinking the favored move here is this is a bearish bias. So we're thinking we're probably coming down. You also could have been thinking that there could be a wider downtrend in play that looks something like this. You wouldn't have had it confirmed, but it's a possibility. And so you get this lower high, second entry short, really bearish looking bar. It's a little bit of a, you got a doji here and it's, there's not really any body, but pretty low risk. It's only 9 ticks and, that's a really bearish setup. It also, if you drew this off of this, it confirms this trend line off of those closes. So I really like that one just to try to ride it to the low. Ends up going much further and you definitely get a runner on that too. And then it comes down and you get this bullish looking candle at the measured move, but I don't think you can risk that. You're still within this down channel, so you can't really take that. But you do get a higher low here. So if you took this, I wouldn't be mad at you, but it is a big candle, 16 ticks. So you're having an 18 tick stop loss if you're going 1 tick above this. The reason it's also green is that it gave you an inside bar next to it. So now you've got possible congestion forming. It's a little sideways, possible congestion there, and you have to get entered here. And it would have, and it does look like a congestion play. So it's questionable, but it was the measured move. You are expecting probably to at least come back to the EMA here. And it was a higher low on this down channel, so you might not get a new low there. And you end up not getting one. You probably did get a runner on this if you sat through these sideways candles and let it fill you. You would have actually got a runner and had this crazy, crazy move up. Now this move here is interesting because I drew this channel off of this low here. It moved on me, of course. It was something like, it was originally like this. And I had this up channel working that is really off of a weird spot. You're drawing it off kind of off of this low right here, which is kind of strange. And so technically this is kind of a close outside and a new high on this tight channel. But you don't have any red candles in there. So you're not, to me, there's probably a wider channel at play. So if you took a short here, you could have, because you could have seen this as a double bottom, because it's only really like 1 tick difference. So you can see that as a double bottom and as a first entry short, second entry short on a bearish bar, but it's not a perfect setup. It's not the high of the move. It's kind of funky. You're far from the EMA. You're far from the channel bottom. So if you risk that, I think it's okay. It's just not perfect. And if you did take this, you'd have to have your stop loss above this high, in my opinion, not above this bar, just because it's kind of the where it entered. It's sort of inside of this. Then you get a nice move here because you get a first entry, break of the channel, and new low, and or not new low, and a low here that then reverses and gives you a second entry long because it's a first entry, second entry long. So you're expecting a at least test of this high, and you do get it right here. So you would have actually got a runner on this one if you stayed in it. Most people probably would have exited at the highs, and that's why you see this do that and then go up a little further. And then that's pretty much what I saw for the day. It is also back within the range. That's another thing I forgot to mention. I had this range still, and it's a nice move back into the range there. And it just looks like we're probably going to go higher. We still got time to come up and test these highs. With the way it's been lately, we keep getting these late day rallies. So that was a possibility. I actually did take that trade. I came back and traded a little bit more. And now what it's actually looking like is forming here. It looks like a possible. It's hard to say exactly how you could probably draw it. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that. It does look like there's a possible spike in channel here if you go off of maybe this low. And it fits. That actually fits pretty decent like that. And maybe off of maybe like that, something like that. It's kind of a steep channel, but it's a possible spike in channel here. So you could be looking at this as your next setup. And there's some even here. There's a first entry, second entry failure that goes up higher. So if you were still in the trade, that would give you confirmation that we're probably going to make another small leg up. From this high, you do get a first entry, second entry, but it's no good signal bar, kind of sideways. It's a double top there. You're not really getting any more setups here, unfortunately. I don't really see anything I like here. Nothing I would have taken. But that's pretty much it for the day. And I'm going to wrap it up here, and I'll see you tomorrow.